Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of the Alpine Shire Council of the 30th of September 2025. I'd like to start by inviting our CEO, Mr. Jeremy, to read a statement about recording and live streaming council meetings.
All council meetings are filmed with both video and audio being recorded. Video is focused on a specific area, however, audio from the entire room is captured. In common with all narrative during council meetings, verbal responses to congratulations, obituaries and question time will not be recorded in the written minutes. By submitting a question, you consent to your question being read aloud at the meeting. The reasoning behind recording council meetings is to hold us more accountable and to improve the transparency of council's decision-making to our community. The full meeting is being streamed live on Council's YouTube channel, which is Alpine Shire Council, and will also be available on the YouTube channel shortly after this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. Item 2 is acknowledgement of traditional custodians and recognition of all people, and I would invite everybody to stand. Alpine Shire Council acknowledges the Tongarong peoples as the traditional owners of the lands on which we are meeting today. Council also acknowledges all of the traditional owners of the wider lands of the area known as the Alpine Shire. We also acknowledge the people who have contributed to the rich fabric of our community over time and strive to make wise decisions that will improve the quality of life for all. Thank you. Item 3 is confirmation of minutes for the Ordinary Council meeting M8 held on the 9th of September 2025. And the recommendation is that the minutes of the M8 meeting 9th September 2025 as circulated be confirmed. Councillors, moved by Councillor Smith and seconded by Councillor Tanzan. Councillor Smith? Councillor Tanzan, any comments or questions? We'll take that to the vote then. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 4 is apologies, and we have none. Item 5 is obituaries and congratulations, and I'm going to start on my left with Councillor Tanzan.
None from me, thanks.
Councillor Ronco.
Hi, I would like to congratulate the Alpine Cycling Club members who participate to the 2025 Horse Cycling Master and Junior National Road Championship in Wagga Wagga. And we have seen 4 new national champions with Gary Milburn in road racing and Criterium, Christophe Baudry in road race, and Tim Moss on road race. Also, I would like to acknowledge all the Alpine Shire Chamber of Commerce and the Alpine Shire for advocating for economic support to businesses after the Papuka aftermath. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Just like a couple of congratulations to some sporting groups in the Alpine Shire. In what's been a pretty hard month, we've had a lot of success. Myrtleford Football Netball Club had 5 of their 7 sides in preliminary finals. No one made it through to winning grand finals, but it's still a great achievement for Myrtleford Football Netball to have 5 sides out of 7 make it to prelim finals. Up this end of the valley, Bright Football Netball had all 7 sides in the finals. We had 2 football sides win premierships, which hasn't happened for 21 years. So fantastic for the Valley to see Bright successful again, and well done to all on that group.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. I'd like to pass on my sincere thanks to everyone who has gone above and beyond in the last 5 weeks following the Porepunkah incident. To the residents of Porepunkah and Bright, I understand that you have done it particularly hard with close down, stay at home and stay away messaging. I appreciate the strain that has been placed on Alpine Shire staff and congratulate them on the way they have conducted themselves. Without trying to embarrass anyone, I note the exceptional effort that has been put in by 2 of our own councillors. Firstly, Councillor Ronco, living in Porepunkah, he has directly He has had daily direct contact with Meta residents and advocating for them. And secondly, with the magnificent effort put in by almost daily, conducting interviews, media releases, countless hours on the phone, meeting state and federal ministers, advocating for our communities and being available all hours, I thank Mayor Nicholas for her unwavering commitment. There is no truth to the rumour that she broke her arm so she could have a rest.
Thank you very much, Councillor Graham, and I'm not sure my joke has been that I needed a break. Councillor Brown.
Nothing to add here, thanks.
Councillor Anderson.
Just congratulations to the 10 new citizens. We had a citizenship ceremony just before the meeting, and it was really warming to see a large group of people in here supporting those people. So congratulations to those 10 new citizens.
It was 11. There's a latecomer. Thanks. I have a couple of congratulations, and well, I'm going to start with this one. It might even be an obituary, but not really. I wanted to thank two people in the gallery tonight, particularly Mary Pike and Trish. I'm sorry, I can't remember your last name. Trish Cross, who have been part of the Upper Kiewa Valley Community Association since its inception in 13 years ago. It has now decided to go, well, it's now gone into remission. No, it's stopped. We'll use the words properly, due to nobody wanting to pick up the baton. But I really love the positive response that Mary sent to me was, well, we've actually achieved what we wanted to do, which was better communication with the Shire. And that now that we're doing such great community engagement, we're talking really to lots of people about lots of things that are happening, and that's exactly what she thought needed to happen. And also commend Mary for driving the beginning of a new program on Alpine FM that is about the Shire once a week, and there's a selection of people who are sitting here right all tonight across the bench who will be talking on that program and helping people understand what we do and who we are and what we do. So thank you very much, and thank you, Trish, as well. I always wanted to congratulate the Bright Theatre Company for their latest production, which is called Things I Know to Be True. It was absolutely magnificent. I was riveted and I was crying, and it was such a moving production and really well put on. And I heard later that there were 3 people in that production, I think there were only 7 actors anyway, who had never acted before. I still don't know who they were. So a really good job put on by local people, but it was also supported by a bunch of people who are involved in the theatre industry further away, but young people from our area who were supportive with props and moving around scenery and stuff in betweens. The last thing I wanted to raise today is the council plan and the action plan that we put through last council meeting, but it's now really out. There's a few print copies available. They're available in the library. They'll be available at our work sites. So we're not spending lots of print copies around because we didn't print any money, but it's available online. And of course, it's joined by the action plan. So congratulations to everybody who's been behind that. Again, a lot of people sitting at this bench tonight, but a lot of people who work across the Alpine Shire in general, and all the community members who contributed. So I think it's a great plan, and I'm really looking forward to rolling out the action plan. And then I just wanted to pick up a little bit more of what Councillor Graham said. So, yes, really, lots of effort by the councillors that you mentioned, but all councillors and all the staff and a whole lot of community members. And I've had an incredible amount of positive feedback from within the Alpine Shire and beyond about the way that the whole thing's been managed from the perspective of community support. So I really appreciate the feedback, and I wanted to share that not just with the people who participated, but the people who gave us the feedback. That's me. Our next item is item 6, declarations from councillors' conflict of interest. Do we have any tonight? Nope. The next item is public questions, And tonight we will take any questions that people would like to take from the floor after we've done our one question on notice. It's quite long. I will try and... No, I'll just read the whole thing. The question has come in from Lily Quinnell, and it is about a cat curfew. Lily says that she believes it's the best interest of the community and residents of the Shire that a curfew for cats within the Shire be implemented. Recognising that they're important pets, she also points out that they are incredibly destructive to the wildlife of our community. She has done some research and says that each roaming pet cat kills something like 186 reptiles, birds and mammals per year. Most of those animals, birds, reptiles native to Australia. So collectively, that's about something between 4,500 and 8,100 animals per square kilometre per year for the area inhabited by pet cats. So she has also pointed out that the Indigo and Wodonga Council have instilled cat curfews. Indigo has imposed a 24/7 ban on roaming, so 24 hours, 7 days a week. These councils are taking responsibility for the destructive nature of cats and instilling protocol to manage. As we know, we are entering a new stage in the world and we must make it a priority to protect the very thing we call home. That means instilling new rules and taking responsibility for damages done to our beautiful Shire. I would like you to thoroughly consider my request, as it is for the greater good of the community, the residents and ultimately the environment. So, thank you very much for your question, Lily. A cat curfew has been discussed for years in various iterations of the council I've been involved with. It's not an easy thing to implement, and Ms Cook's going to talk to this a little bit further. What we see is really important, that cats need to be managed in a similar way to dogs, that there needs to be responsible pet management and education about what that is. But I really like that she pulled out the huge number of native creatures that are removed from our ecosystems by feral, pet cats, but also feral cats, and there's a lot of feral cats around as well. So I'm now going to hand over to Ms Cook to answer more fully. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Lily, for the question. And we agree, we very much value our wildlife here in the Shire, and responsible pet ownership is a really important part of that when it comes to managing cats in our environment. One of the interesting points is that cats are currently required to be maintained within their owner's premises or securely confined at all times. So that's a current requirement across the Shire under Section 25 of the Domestic Animal Management Act, 1994, and also in our local law at Section 2. Owners are liable for a penalty if their cat is found outside of their property, both through the issuing of an infringement or to pay relevant pound release fees. However, we still recognise that wandering cats are a concern across the Shire. From a policy perspective, Council has a domestic animal management plan, which is due to be reviewed in 2026, and the investigation of a cat curfew is a current outstanding action in the current plan, which will be assessed as a part of this review. However, in the meantime, if there are any concerns about a wandering cat, which is causing problems, residents can borrow a cat cage from our customer service areas. This is free of charge. And if a cat is caught, if you contact council once a cat is caught, our local law staff will attend the site during business hours and collect the cat. So there is something you can do in the meantime. However, we will investigate the cat curfew further as part of our domestic management plan.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms Cook. The next item is, or the continuing item is questions. So I now invite people to ask questions from the floor. If anybody has a question, some people know the drill, up to the, thank you very much, Mary, up to the mic and turn it on and say who you are and where you're from.
I'm actually breaking the rules because I'm not here to ask a question. I just want to do a tit for tat because I'd like to say thank you for the Shire staff and councillors for the support they've given to the program that I have put up. And I hope it's successful. It seems to be going well, and I hope you all know it's available at 7 o'clock at night as well. So the staff and councillors have all been fabulous, but I'd like to particularly say thank you to Simone, your engagement and communications officer, who's been incredibly supportive. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. Any further questions from the floor? Good evening, Ray.
My name's Ray Dyer and I reside out at Buffalo River. I'll just let you know, because I got it here now, but I think I've already spoken about the council meeting. This has no criminal content whatsoever. I also said that in the Wangaratta police station back about 10, 15 years ago. I said it's all political. No criminal content whatsoever. And I think you'll be seeing it a lot more around. Now, I've spoken about trees for quite a while, and I've watched trees being cut down for over the last 12 months. And I've asked for the records of the trees being cut down, because you should have photographs and a description what was wrong with the tree and the reason it was cut down. I think I've spoken a couple of times about it over the council meetings, and I'm asking the third time for a copy of the trees for the last year and a half, because the trees are still being cut down. Next to the courthouse in Myrtleford the other day, there was already 2 taken out near the courthouse, going across the road to the Myrtleford Hospital op shop. But I see on the boundary of the courthouse, there was trees taken out there only just recently. So if I could please have a copy of all the trees that have been cut down over the last year, well, nearly 2 years now, because it's nearly coming up 12 months. This council's having a 12 months term. That'd be well appreciated. Because when I have a mayor, when the tree got taken out, the pin oak in Coles car park in Myrtleford, which I estimate was close to 100 years old, not backwards, it was a fair size, it was cut down, and John Forsyth turned around and said to me, the tree's been cut down, what are you going to do about it? Well, that's not the actions of a mayor.
Ray, can I ask you a question? Do you want just the Myrtleford area or the whole Alpine Shire?
No, just the Myrtleford area, because the amount of trees that have been cut down there is unbelievable. And Gareth, I believe that one at the tennis courts, it's dying. The one, the big plane tree that I said? The one that's on the other side of the creek next to the tennis court. Have a look at that one. I think I said to you before winter, I said I believe that tree's dying. And it's quite an age too. It's about that diameter. Now, the other issue is, I've been coming to council meetings since 2008, I would say, and I was getting copies of the minutes of the meetings for nearly 5, 6, 7 years, until one day I came in and I asked, I normally got it on the Friday before the council meetings, and they changed and swapped around the council meetings. Question time was the end of the meetings, and lots and lots of things. But I always got a copy of the minutes of the meetings. And I went in one day and the meetings weren't ready. So no worries, I'll pick it up Monday. Well, I went to my mate's place at Paul Punker. We looked up on the internet and the minutes are already out on the internet. I come back to the Shire and I said to the mayor at the time, Peter Roper, I said, I don't like being lied to. He says, in future, you get your minutes from the library at Myrtleford. Well, the Myrtleford library can't do them. The computers are just too slow. So, and I've been asking for a while, and I've all been stating for the last 20 years about the minutes of meetings not being correct. You put down what you want. So I'm asking a copy for the minutes of meeting, a written copy of the minutes of the meetings for next council meeting. It's a council, the state government allow that for the residents of the shires, and I'm entitled to it. I've had it for many years. When I get told by a mayor that you can no longer do it, go to the library and do it, well, it's not on. That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Dyer. Any further questions from the floor? No? Thank you. Next item then is item 8. We start with presentation of reports by our Chief Executive Officer, Mr Jeremy, 8.1.1.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The recommendation of this report is that the capital project contracts approved under delegation by the CEO be noted. There is one contract that has been approved under delegation under CEO delegation in the last month, and that has the title of grading the Dargo, the Abbey Yards, Buckland and the Rose River roads. The successful tenderer was Richardson Earthworks and Maintenance. The budget that was allocated for this contract was $190,000, excluding GST, and the contract award value was $196,290. And the process that was followed for this award was a request for quotation process.
Thank you very much, Mr Jeremy. Councillors. Moved Councillor Byrne, seconded Councillor Smith. Councillor Byrne.
Mr Jeremy, thank you, John. So my understanding is Dargo Road, is that being transferred to the state government? If so, has each individual road been costed under this agreement? And what would the cost be, please?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. That's a great question. So this collection of roads here, being the Dargo, Abbey Yards, Buckland and Rose River roads, all have slightly different circumstances, but council officers have a belief that in each case there's a strong argument that these are not local government or municipal roads, and they're actually roads that the state government should be looking after. And in each case, we're in a process of engaging with the state government around a process to have the status of these roads assessed, and ultimately, in the view of the officers, to have these roads taken on by the state government rather than being maintained by council. So we've collectively gathered them under a single contract in order to make it transparent, the cost that the ratepayers are incurring for grading roads, which, in the view of the officers, are not a council responsibility.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a real great area, this cost, and it is a big cost to our shire. And we've done this, from my understanding and research, we've done it for the last 20 years. It's always the same cost. Hopefully we are pushing to get, whether it's Vic Roads government but this is a huge cost. When you look at how long we've done this work for over the last 20 years, can you explain a little bit more on that, please?
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I'm going to start, and then ultimately, when I run out of knowledge, I'm going to pass over to Director Buckley. So our understanding is that Council has assumed responsibility for maintaining certainly the Dargo Road since around 1981, 1982, so a significant period of time. There's a lot of history over that period of time. Council officers at various points, together with Council, have attempted to discharge that responsibility to the state government, and they've ultimately been unsuccessful up to this point in time. So clearly it's not particularly attractive for state government to take on new assets and incur costs when they've got a council that's been delivering that over that period of time. So we've got a particular focus at this point in time, and we have done over the last few years, because it has become increasingly apparent what cost is being incurred by the ratepayer to maintain these roads. In the past, it was standard practice for these to be done by the internal works team. So we would send a grading crew up to the Dargo High Plains Road for a period of about 3 weeks a year. It was a significant operation, but the cost was never transparent because it was included in the payroll cost of the organisation, and it was kind of hidden behind the scenes in terms of the materials they used. A few years ago, we took a decision together with Council to call this out and have this work tendered so that it was very, very transparent what was the cost to the ratepayer of maintaining this particular cluster of roads. So we now have very good visibility. We have worked slowly in the background over the last couple of years with the relevant state government agencies to try and gain their interest in having a look at what is the status of these roads and a proper assessment of whose responsibility they are. And to be transparent, we haven't been very successful in attracting the interest of the state government. Our recommendation to council, which is going to come to you over the coming months, is that we ramp up our efforts as council and as the officers. And ultimately, perhaps particularly in the case of the Dargo, consider a position where council walks away from this obligation or walks away from this practice where it's been maintaining a road that we don't believe is council's responsibility in the event that we can't attract sufficient interest from the state government to look at this.
Thank you. The only thing I just wanted to add also with the tender process for this work, how much interest was in there? Can you just explain with the tender, was there much competition and when we awarded this under your delegation?
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Another good question. We saw significant interest in this package of civil works, and in fact we're seeing increasing interest in our civil works packages in general, which reflects perhaps a softening of work in the marketplace, so there's more available contractors. From recollection, and Director Buckley will correct me if I'm wrong, I think we had 10 submissions to this tender. So it was a significant interest. Typically, over the past few years, if we saw 3 or perhaps 4 tenders, we would consider that to be a good response from the market. So certainly we've seen a very impressive response, a lot of contractors potentially interested in taking on these works.
Thank you.
Any other councillors like to talk to or from the motion? Councillor Tanzin.
So when you talk about the tendering process, what are some of the considerations that council has when we award a tender?
Thank you, Councillor Tanzin. I'm going to delegate that response to to Director Buckley to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. Thank you, Councillor Tanzin. We have a set process for all our tendering in capital works and, in fact, for all works as part of council. The standard practice is to score against price, qualifications and previous performance, delivery, social and environmental sustainability, and an evaluation percentage is set across each of those criteria to score against prior to it going out to tender.
Awesome, thanks.
No problem.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Anderson.
Mr. Jeremy, are we legislated at all to look after these roads?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. So we don't believe there's any formal written obligation for council to maintain, particularly the Dargo High Plains Road. The situation is slightly different in the case of the Abbeyards, Buckland and Rose River, where there is an agreement in place, an historic agreement, where council has assumed some responsibilities. But in the case of the Dargo, this road doesn't appear on council's road register. It doesn't actually appear on anyone's road register that we've been able to identify, so everyone at the moment is washing their hands of it, but there's no formal obligation that we can find where council is obligated to maintain this road.
Thank you.
Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. Given that in the future we might just walk away from grading these roads and potentially come head-to-head arguments with the state government, what would you see would be the fallout from us not grading these roads?
Thank you, Councillor Graham. It's an interesting question. Our relationship with the state government is a very important relationship. So local government exists as a series of, legislated acts under the state government. So it's an interesting approach, and I think it's why in the past council perhaps haven't taken that ultimate step of walking away, because potentially you do cause damage to a relationship that is a source of funding for council. Particularly, people get nervous when they essentially go up against the state government, that there could be a potential implication for their funding. So I think we would see walking away from this assumed obligation as a last step only after we'd carried out an extensive engagement campaign with the state government to try and encourage them to come to the party in a collaborative manner. It would only be taken as a last step and not something that we would recommend that council jumps into lightly because it does have potential to damage the relationship with the state government. The other thing to be aware of is there is significant usage of the Dargo High Plains Road by visitors that travel from Wellington Shire up into the Alpine Shire, by users of the national parks, particularly the four-wheel driving community. There could be some reputational damage for council if it chose an unwise path to essentially walk away from the maintenance of this road. So there's quite a few considerations. I think this is why it's never been brought to a conclusion previously. We've kind of got close and then council has essentially backed away because some of the options looked unattractive from a reputation and a relationship point of view.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right of reply, Councillor Byrne? No. Any further questions, comments? No. All those, we'll take it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on to item 8.2, which is Director of Assets Sarah Buckley, and item 8.2.1. Thank you, Ms Buckley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report, adoption of Amendment C56 ALPI to the Alpine Planning Scheme. The report summarises the outcomes of the exhibition phase associated with the amendment to the Alpine Planning Scheme and recommends that Council adopts the amendment prior to submitting it to the Minister for Planning for approval. Amendment C56 ALPI to the Alpine Planning Scheme is required to implement the findings of the Great Alpine Road Western Gateway Bright Landscape and Heritage Detailed Assessment Methodology Report 2024. The Heritage Assessment recommends the inclusion of the avenue planting of pin oak, Dutch elm and scarlet oak, the avenue, along the Great Alpine Road to the west of Bright in the Heritage Overlay as an individually significant heritage place. At the ordinary council meeting held on the 30th of July 2024, council adopted the Heritage Assessment and resolved to prepare and exhibit a planning scheme amendment to apply the Heritage Overlay to the avenue. The amendment itself proposes overlay maps, planning scheme ordinance, amendment to the schedule to clause 72.004, which is detailed in the report, and amendment to the schedule to clause 72.08, also detailed in the report. Amendment C56 ALPI was exhibited in accordance with the requirements of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. During the exhibition phase, the amendment received 8 submissions during the exhibition period. Council officers have corresponded with all submitters regarding any matters raised, and no changes to the amendment have been requested. A detailed summary of the submissions and council officer responses are outlined in attachment 1 in the delegates' report. Given that no submissions objected to or requested changes, council officers have resolved all outstanding matters raised in the submissions, and the amendment does not need to be heard at an independent planning panel. The financial and resource implications are as follows. A fee of $546.30 must be paid for the Minister of Planning to consider a request to approve the amendment. The costs of this amendment are accommodated within the adopted 25-26 budget. The resolution of submissions has avoided the need for an independent planning panel that will create a significant cost and resource impost to council. Heritage Overlay will not have a significant impact on the resource and administrative costs on council. Therefore, tonight it is recommended that Council notes that Amendment C56 ALPI to the Alpine Planning Scheme received 8 submissions, notes the delegates' report which outlines Council officers' responses to the matters raised, that Council adopts the Amendment C56 ALPI and submits Amendment C56 ALPI to the Alpine Planning Scheme to the Minister for Planning for approval, in accordance with Section 31 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987.
Thank you, Ms Buckley. Councillors, Councillor Ronco and Yep, Councillor Ronco's moved the motion and seconded. Councillor Anderson. Councillor Ronco.
Hi. I would like just to know if this amendment was also the result of our community and residents raising their concern about this avenue of tree to Councillor, CEO and Council Director.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. It was a bit of a combination of both. It's got a long history in terms of heritage overlays in general. The previous Shire did some work to identify places of significance, but this was not comprehensive. This work has been included in the Alpine Planning Scheme at the amalgamation of Shires. To understand heritage and significance takes quite an extensive amount of research time and resources. And it was identified as part of the Alpine Shire Planning Scheme Review 2023 that heritage overlays may be required and a gap analysis should be undertaken. The newly formed strategic planning team had a very ambitious work program with many, many pieces of work as a result of that gap analysis. And certainly, at the Ordinary Council meeting held in March 2023, which wasn't mentioned in the actual report, Council noted a community petition seeking to protect the avenue trees and resolved to engage a suitably qualified consultant to assess as a result of this. So I guess you could say the push for this from the community moved it up the very long profile of works that would be required for a variety of very important reasons. And at the meeting held on the 30th of July 2024, Council adopted the Heritage Assessment and resolved to prepare and exhibit the current planning scheme amendment.
Thank you. I would like to thank our residents and especially the Safe Gateway Tree Group for the hard work done to protect this beautiful avenue of tree for the future generation. Because I feel that their voice have been heard and we heard them quite loudly. And it's good now we are applied to our planning scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. Councillor Anderson.
Is this the first time that this particular overlay for trees has been applied to the Alpine scheme, and is it set a precedent? Will there be more of these sort of coming into the ether, I guess?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. This isn't the first time that it has occurred. In general, there are heritage overlays that apply to the Alpine Shire. Heritage overlays have been placed on similar avenues of trees across the municipality previously. There are 3 other avenues in Bright itself. We have Burke Street, Delaney Avenue and Wood Street. And certainly those coupled with this will set, the precedent, but also the fact that it is required when those trees are identified across the Shire. Thank you.
Thank you. Other councillors? Councillor Smith?
Yeah, just quickly, would this apply retrospectively? And the second part of it, how long before it would be a legal planning document, this to be changed?
It will not apply retrospectively. It must be approved first, and the whole process will take around about 6 months.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions, concerns? No. I've got a sticky one. I hope it's not too sticky. Will a heritage overlay prevent removal of trees at all trees, no matter what? Or are there some exceptions?
There are actually some exceptions. We had a submission, I've got submissions here in front of me. We had a submission from Department of Transport similarly around this matter, and they were more noting that will this heritage overlay stop, safety works being done, maintenance work and lopping? It will not. If it's, and I can read the officer's responses out, a planning permit under the heritage overlay is not required for lopping a tree to keep clear of electrical lines. And if roadworks are required for safety matters and the installation of traffic signals and signs, the trees can be adjusted.
Thank you. And I have another question. So, who becomes responsible for the management of the trees in a heritage overlay?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Given that the speed limit has changed to 60 kilometres per hour, the trees are the responsibility of council. However, clearance zones are still the responsibility of Vic Roads. So if it was an 80 kilometre zone, Vic Roads will be completely responsible for the tree. In the 60 kilometre zone under our area agreement, council is responsible for the tree, but Vic Roads is responsible for clearance lines for road safety matters.
Thank you. And I know this is a question without notice. Do we expect that that might increase the amount of money we need to spend on that avenue?
It will, yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Comments? Right of reply? Take it to the vote. All those in favour? Beautiful. Carried unanimously. And we move on to item 8.2.2. Ms Buckley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 8.2.2, Mount Beauty Rec Reserve and Les Perth Oval Community Asset Committee. The purpose of this report is to recommend the formation of a Community Asset Committee for the management of the Mount Beauty Rec Reserve and Les Perth Oval in Mount Beauty, and the adoption of an instrument of delegation to outline the roles and responsibilities of Alpine Shire Council and any Community Asset Committee for these important community spaces. The Mount Beauty Rec Reserve and Les Perth Oval are located on council land. The Mount Beauty Rec Reserve Committee of Management was previously established as a special committee of management under Section 86 of the Local Government Act 1989 to manage the reserve and oval. Elements of this Act have since been replaced by the Local Government Act 2020 and Section 86 committees no longer exist. Given this, council officers recently met with the user groups of the Mount Beauty Rec Reserve to discuss future management options. It was agreed that a Community Asset Committee would be the best model to manage the reserve and oval and should be formed by council. Detailed in the report is the compilation of the Community Asset Committee and the representative numbers. The role of the Community Asset Committee would be to manage, operate and maintain the reserve and oval for the community and to encourage, promote and provide use of the reserve and oval. Without an approved committee, responsibility for the management of the reserve and oval would return to council. Once the formation and membership structure of the committee is endorsed by council, the instrument of sub-delegation to members of the committee can be approved by the Chief Executive Officer. A council officer will attend committee meetings, which will be standard working hours, and once the committee has matured, meetings are expected to be held quarterly. There is no change to the financial impact to council. Council officers have been consulting with user groups of the reserve and oval to determine their preferred management structure going forward. As a result, this evening, it is recommended that council exercises the power conferred by Section 65 of the Local Government Act 2020. So the Mount Beauty Rec Reserve and Les Perth Oval Community Asset Committee can be formed to reflect current community needs for the management of the Mount Beauty Rec Reserve and Les Perth Oval. And point 1.b is the consistency of the membership of the committee. That council A quorum of the committee is a whole number, that is absolute majority, which is greater than half the total number of members of the committee, and all members of the committee have voting rights. And that council notes that in accordance with section 47(1)(b) of the Local Government Act 2020, the instrument of subdelegation to the committee will be updated by the Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Ms Buckley. Councillors, Councillor Townsend, Councillor Smith. Moved, Councillor Townsend. Councillor Townsend.
Yeah, thanks. So with the Community Asset Committee taking this on and the management, does that mean they're going to be taking on mowing, all that sort of thing?
Thank you, Councillor Townsend. The committee already does the mowing of the ovals. Council mows around the outside because it's not part of their responsibility. It's worth noting that in the coming months there'll be a new rec reserve policy put forward to council, which looks at the resources provided from council to those committees that's fair and equitable across the Shire to ensure that those committees have the appropriate resources from council to manage those ovals.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you. Can you just enlighten me, in the Alpine Shire currently, how many other of these community asset committees have we got in place? Or if not, and what else, can you see any future ones that might come from this as well in the Murderford-Bride area other than Mount Beauty?
Thank you, Councillor Smith. We currently have 2. That's excluding this committee, Mount Beauty Senior Citizens and the Bright Senior Citizens, U3A. There's 6 more proposed to come forward to council in the coming 6 months to move over to the Community Asset Committee. The council officers are working on this currently to move forward. And then there's another 2 that haven't been that the officers haven't met with yet to progress. So that will be a total of 8 that are potentially coming across to this form of a committee.
Thank you, Tal.
Any other comments, questions? Councillor Anderson.
Just a couple of questions on the representatives of the committee. Alpine Shire Council representative, is that does that add an extra cost to the council? And also, how are the 2 members of the general public, how are they selected into the committee?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. It's believed that it won't add a resource impost. The officer that will be the representative has quite a bit to do with the committee already and does meet with them informally on a semi-regular basis. So we believe we can manage this within existing resources. The members of the public, an expression of interest is advertised, and if we have more than 2 that apply, then a fairly detailed interview process is conducted. If we do have 2 that apply, we still do look at their suitability to the committee as well, and it's selected by a panel.
Thank you. Further questions, comments? No. We'll take this one to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. And we move on to 8.2.3 landfill monitoring.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 8.2.3 landfill monitoring 25 to 27. This report relates to the award of a contract for an environmental monitoring program across former landfill sites within the Alpine Shire for the next 2 years. Council currently undertakes monitoring at 5 closed landfill sites to meet its obligation under the Environmental Protection Act closed landfill guidelines. The monitoring includes field testing, laboratory analysis and reporting of groundwater, surface water, leachate and gas emissions. The following sites are included in the contract: Mount Beauty, Myrtleford Landfill, Old Myrtleford Landfill, Old Harrietville Landfill and Porpunka Landfill. As a result of the tender process, a contract has been prepared for the monitoring services commencing 6th of October 2025 for a period of 2 years. A total of 36 prospective organisations downloaded the documentation, and we received 14 submissions for the monitoring contract. After assessing against the key selection criteria listed in the report, it was determined that the tender from DBD Environmental Pty Ltd, trading as Enovo, best met the requirements of the selection criteria. Results from the regular monitoring activities are reviewed annually and form the basis for the scope of investigation in subsequent monitoring years. As such, changes to the required monitoring program may occur during the period of the contract. Financial and resource implications. The budget allocation for landfill monitoring in the 25-26 financial year is $167,000. Year one costs based upon the minimum prescribed monitoring frequency and specifications are $131,670 excluding GST. Year two will be subject to an increase in line with CPI, and therefore the total estimated value over the 2 years is $267,290 excluding GST. It's worth noting there is sufficient allocation within Council's waste reserve to fund the 2-year monitoring program under the proposed contract. As a result, this evening it is recommended that Council 1 awards contract landfill monitoring 2025 to 2027 to DBD Environmental Pty Ltd for a 2-year term with a year one lump sum price of $131,670 excluding GST and an estimated total cost of $267,290, and delegates authority to the CEO to sign and seal the contract at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Ms Buckley. Councillors. Councillor Anderson. Councillor Ronco. Councillor Anderson.
This is quite a cost to the council, to ratepayers as well. Are we likely to gain any other form of landfill sites and an increase in monitoring in the coming years?
It's unlikely we'll find any additional sites. It has happened to other councils across the state, finding hidden sites before. However, it's very likely that we will need to increase the amount of monitoring, and that's because the older landfill sites have limited monitoring infrastructure on them currently. We have commissioned a study this financial year to understand how much extra infrastructure is required, which would look like monitoring bores for leachate and methane. And if those bores are required at those historical sites, then that would mean further monitoring at those bores, which would increase the cost if they are required.
We're legislated, we have to do these, and it's just a cost that we have to take.
Correct.
Is that right? Yeah.
That's absolutely correct. The EPA changed the Act a few years ago, which basically meant that under the previous Act, they were only really looking at Porpunka and landfill because they had existing licences. But now it's any landfill that you have had previous responsibility and historical responsibility for. You're obliged to step towards monitoring for a 2-year period and then understanding whether you need to do further capping works to keep in the leachate and methane within the cell.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ronco.
Just do the price of the landfill monitoring commonly follow the CPI, or do they have increased considerably in the last few years?
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. They have significantly increased. They've pretty much tripled. The reason for that is there's 2 reasons, main reasons. cost of contractors is the third one. But the two main reasons are that the EPA now require you to do more extensive testings on what's called analytes, which is when you bring the leachate out of the ground. You've got a lot of different parameters to test. That's increased the number of parameters that we are required to test. And in addition to that, laboratory costs have gone through the roof pretty much. So that's the main difference, as well as contracted labour costs have increased, not as much as the cost for laboratory testing.
Yep, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Director Buckley. Just reading between the lines, if we, at the end of the 2 years, fail the monitoring, I suspect we will then have to do further capping of some or all of these sites.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. You are correct. So at the end of the 2 year period, if we show elevated amounts of leachate above acceptable levels and elevated leakage of methane, we will likely be required to complete a hydrological assessment and an environmental management plan, which will then input into a design for capping works. Council has projected this as part of the waste reserve, so it's likely that it will be an impost to council, and we're well aware of the fact that it might be coming, but we can adjust, the cost of waste to council as we find out more from the monitoring program.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Councillor Anderson.
Just on that, if it's going to be a growing cost to council, is there any means or way or grants that we could get from state or federal who could help us with this? Or is it just a cost that we have to cop?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. I've never witnessed any grants for landfill capping in the past. Sustainability Victoria will at times fund infrastructure that reduces waste, but I haven't been witness to any for landfills. It's funded from the ratepayer through the waste management charge, and as mentioned earlier, it's a requirement under the EPA Act, and at present that's the only way we can currently fund it. It would be ideal if they were to provide funds for landfill capping. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Buckley. I have a question. Do we use the data generated around methane in particular to assist us in reducing our greenhouse gas emissions or working towards better management?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We do capture data so we monitor the landfills, we understand how much methane is coming out of them, and as a result of that, we generate a report that tells us what the greenhouse gas emissions are, the quantity of the greenhouse gas emissions coming from those landfills. And in our climate action plans, one of the actions is landfill capping, because that reduces the methane. It stops rain coming in and producing leachate and then methane. And so that's one of our primary actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is landfill capping.
Thank you. And is there anything we can do with the methane? Capture it and use it, for instance?
There's not. A few years ago, we had a report completed that looked at the ability to burn the methane or turn it into energy as a result of burning, capturing it. And the generation of methane wasn't a high enough quantity. And in addition to that, the infrastructure costs far outweighed the benefits. So unfortunately not, but it has been considered.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions before we take this to the vote? No? We'll take it to the vote then. All those in favour? Thank you. That's unanimous. And we move on to item 8.3, which is our Director of Corporate and Community, Ms Cook, and 8.3.1. Thank you, Ms Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 8.3.1 is the Finance Committee Charter revocation. So council currently operates a finance committee through a council-approved charter. With the introduction of other monitoring mechanisms, revocation of the finance committee charter is sought, effectively dissolving the finance committee. So council approved a finance committee charter on the 5th of July 2016, with the most recent review and update occurring in July 2021. The Finance Committee was established as an advisory committee with the aim of reviewing the quarterly budget reports, the interim and annual financial statements and the financial policies. So the Local Government Act 2020 requires Council to establish an Audit and Risk Committee under Section 53. The Finance Committee is established as an advisory committee and has no legislative status under the Local Government Act. The current committee consists of 2 nominated councillors who are supported by various staff members, including the Chief Executive Officer, myself, the Director of Corporate and Community, the Manager Corporate and the organisation's accountant. Councillor Smith and Councillor Byrne are currently appointed as councillor representatives on both the Finance Committee and our Audit and Risk Committee. Further, the CEO currently has a key performance indicator to deliver against the adopted 2025-26 budget and to brief Council on the quarterly financial performance of the organisation no later than 1 month following the quarterly cut-off in quarters 1, 2 and 3. In addition to this, we are proposing to instigate a quarter 4 report, which will be consistent with the reports delivered to councillors in the previous quarters. And to note, to date, the annual financial statement process, and we're going to talk about annual financial statements tonight, has taken the place of this quarter 4 report. So this will be in addition to the annual financial statement process. When we consider our current focus on financial control and reporting mechanisms, the timing of the reporting that I just discussed, and the other established mechanisms of councillor briefing, audit and risk committee, and then providing financial data to council meetings, we consider that the function of the committee has been appropriately, the functions that were established by the charter has been appropriately covered by these other mechanisms. This proposal was discussed at the August 2025 Audit and Risk Committee meeting, and the committee was in agreement with the proposal. It is therefore recommended that Council revokes the Finance Committee charter, effectively dissolving the committee, and notes that appropriate governance and control is in place to address the functions and responsibilities of the Finance Committee. And the recommendation is on your screen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms Cook. Councillors. Councillor Byrne. Councillor Smith. Councillor Byrne.
Nothing to add, thanks.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I completely agree with this, and I'd just like to congratulate the team that the information, I've been to 4 or 5 of these meetings on the audit and risk, and the information that we receive and the way these meetings are put together is really good. So I'd just like to congratulate the team and yeah, very impressed with what we're supplied with and to be involved in these meetings. So well done.
Thank you.
Councillor Ronco.
Just a little question. By revocation of the Financial Committee Charter, is there any consequences for the Audit and Risk Committee?
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. No, there are no consequences for the Audit and Risk Committee. The Audit and Risk Committee is established under its own charter and in accordance with the Act.
Thank you.
Further questions from anybody? No. I'm just going to make a comment that the discussion about revoking the Finance Committee charter and therefore the committee was initiated probably early 2024. I can't quite remember when, and the discussion went, well, yeah, that works because it's often duplicated, because often the members were the same as the Finance and the Audit Committee, so it'd be great to be able to free up staff, but only if we get appropriate finances to the council. And I think we're actually looking at a better way to show what's going on to councillors, because it's all councillors, not just 2. So echo Councillor Smith's comments. It's a great way forward, and I'll call the vote. All those in favour of the recommendation as it stands? That'll be unanimous. Thank you. And we move on to Audit and Risk Committee, item 8.3.2. Ms Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 8.3.2 for the Audit and Risk Committee presents the minutes of the meeting, which was held on the 15th of August 2025. The purpose of the report is to present the unconfirmed minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting and seek appointment of the committee chair for the 2025-26 financial year. The section 5.2 of the Audit and Risk Committee Charter requires that the minutes of the meetings of the Audit and Risk Committee and a report summarising meeting content is reported to a meeting of council within 2 months of the council meeting. The last meeting of the committee, as I said, was on Friday the 15th of August, and as the committee is yet to confirm the minutes, they are now presented to council for noting as unconfirmed. At its August 2025 meeting, the committee considered several items, including regular quarterly reports and standing items, and nominated and recommended its chair for 25-26. Key agenda items are summarised in the report, but I'll give a very high-level overview. The committee nominated and recommended to council for appointment independent member Julie Guest as chair of the committee for 25-26 financial year. This follows Julie acting as chair of the committee for the 24-25 year very successfully. The committee adopted its annual work program for 25-26. The committee reviewed the proposed internal audit plan for 25-26, which includes 3 planned audits internally on the functions of procurement, contract management and fraud control. The committee discussed council's preparedness for the year-end audit, and more of that detail will be in the next report about the annual financial statements. The committee also received a report on the status of the legislative documents required post-election, many of which have been coming to these meetings over the previous months. The committee received progress updates on ICT and cybersecurity outstanding actions, a policy review progress update, an asbestos management update, and an asset management steering group report update. And the recommendation is that council receives and notes the unconfirmed minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 15th of August and receives the Audit and Risk Committee's nomination and recommendation and appoints independent member Julie Guest to the chair of the committee for 25-26. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Cook. Councillors, Councillor Ronco, Councillor Smith. Sorry, looked the wrong way. Councillor Ronco, you were first.
Yep. I was glad to be present to this important meeting as an observer and to see the professionalism of the Alpine Shire officer. I must confess that I was not really aware about the amount of dedicated work produced at the Alpine Shire Council before being elected as councillor, and for me it was a real eye-opener. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. Councillor Smith. Any other councillors like to say anything? Can't help myself. So I just wanted to pick up on that one and some of the words that Ms Cook used, told us about what the Audit and Risk Committee, this meeting covered, and just reflect on the 4 years that I spent on the committee over the years and what terrific committees they've been, how thorough they've been, and how well they've worked with our people. And sometimes audit committees and the staff don't work together very well. So commend our people for making sure that they are very receptive and work constructively with the experts that we have, independent experts. And I think I mentioned, but I know I mentioned at the last council meeting that one of our current members has just been appointed to the general manager role of Mosman Council in New South Wales. The others are also really high calibre, but it reflects the calibre of the people that we have on that committee, and they're very well used, and it's much appreciated. So, having said my piece, anyone else want to add? No, good. We'll take it to vote. All those in favour? And we're carried. Excellent. The next item is 8.3.3, and it's Ms Cook again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 8.3.3 is approval in principle of the 2025 and 26 financial statements and the performance statement in draft for the year ended 30 June 2025. Section 99 of the Local Government Act requires council to pass a resolution giving its approval in principle to the financial statements in draft and the performance statements in draft prior to submitting those statements to the auditor so they may prepare their reports. This report provides an overview of the results of these draft statements, which are provided in full in the attachments. Once approved in principle, and once council has incorporated any other changes recommended or agreed by the auditor, the financial statements and performance statement must be certified by 2 councillors authorised by council prior to the auditor signing their report. So you'll see in the recommendation the requirement to nominate 2 councillors to this role. The financial statement and performance statement were reviewed by our external auditors, and this feedback has been provided and considered and incorporated into the current drafts that are attached to this report. Once these statements are approved in principle, the Victorian Auditors General's Office are provided with the statements by our external auditors and they undertake validation work. With regards to the financial statement in particular, the financial statements show council's financial performance, financial position and cash flow against the previous year. In summary, council ended the 2024-25 financial year with an operating surplus of 7.82 million, however, with an underlying deficit ongoing. The surplus was lower, the operating surplus was lower than what was budgeted in the 24-25 budget, and there are a few key reasons for this difference. One was a higher expenditure related to losses associated with the disposal of assets, which means largely a write-off in the change in asset between works that were undertaken on a childcare centre, which had been recorded as a council asset, which was then moved from being a depreciated, a capitalised program into an expensed program, and the write-off of some intangible assets. We also had higher landfill rehabilitation expenses after the discovery of an uncontrolled landfill site at Myrtleford Transfer Station, and higher material and services expenditures associated with projects which were previously identified as capital, such as some information technology improvements. The impact of these increased expenses has been offset by higher operating grants revenue, primarily driven by the receipt of 50% of our 2025-26 financial assistance grant, which was received in the last week of the financial year for 24-25. We also had some higher than budgeted capital grants revenue due to recognition of revenue associated with several projects where council has undertaken the work yet has not yet received the grant funding into our bank accounts. With regard to the performance statement itself, the performance statement provides an overview of council's progress against key performance indicators. The Local Government Performance Reporting Framework provides the basis for these indicators to enable a uniform performance statement to be undertaken across all Victorian councils. An overview of the movement in results is provided in some detail in the report and, of course, in the attached statement. However, in summary, some of the changes included are utilisation of aquatic facilities increasing for 24-25, community satisfaction with council's community consultation and engagement remaining constant compared to the previous year, statutory planning applications decided within timeframes improving slightly compared to the previous year, but still remaining below target for this measure, and the proportion of curbside waste diverted from landfill continuing to improve after the introduction of the FOGO, or Food Organics Garden Organics program, in the previous year, although at a slower rate. Another notable factor in the performance statement is that the percentage of permanent staff turnover has fallen below 15% for the first time since before COVID-19 impacted on the way people work, which reflects a stabilising and welcome stabilising of our workforce. The recommendation is that council approves in principle the financial statements and performance statements for the year ending 30 June 2025, authorises 2 councillors to certify the financial statements and performance statement for the year ending 30 June 2025 on behalf of Council, subject to any material amendments required by the external auditor being ratified by the Audit and Risk Committee, and once any amendments or changes are made by the Victorian Auditor General. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms Cook. Councillors. Moved, Councillor Byrne. Seconded, Councillor Smith. Councillor Byrne.
I'd like to commend the Finance Committee on the great work they've achieved these two reports in a very, very short time frame to make sure that we can meet the timing of the external auditors and VAGO. So congratulations to the team.
We need to put some names in while we're moving. Yeah. Oh, okay, sorry. Seconder. Pete.
Yeah, thank you. Just to reiterate from Councillor Byrne, yeah, great information and a lot of work's been put in by the team, so really appreciate that. Also like to put forward that being on that committee, I'm happy to put my name forward, nominate myself, and hopefully maybe Councillor Byrne, if he accepts, to sign these reports off on behalf of the council. If you accept
with
that?
Mr. and mover. Yep, perfect. Okay. We've got a mover and a second, and we've got two names. Councillor Byrne, your turn. No?
I've said my piece now. Thank you, Amanda.
Councillor Smith.
That's all.
No. Anybody? Councillor Ronco?
Same thing. I've been there for the meeting as an observer, and I would like again to thank the Alpine Shire officer who prepared this financial statement. Thank you again.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Anderson.
It's working. I guess there's a sort of a report card for the performance of the council on its finances and things. I'd encourage people to have a look. Are these available for the public to see?
So the full, thank you, Councillor Anderson, the full financial statement and performance statement is attached to the agenda tonight as an attachment. Yes,
Yep.
they are
Okay,
public documents.
Thanks a lot.
Any further comments or questions? There will be a further report next month because the Mayor has to deliver a report against performance next month. So I'll pull most of what I think is really good about what's been going on out then. But I just wanted to pick up on the workforce turnover or lack of it. It's been a really major thing for the since COVID. And I think that it demonstrates that it's a great workplace to be in and that we're starting to take some really good steps into the future, even though our community engagement score doesn't show that yet. So well done to everybody who makes the team. And having said that, let's take it to the vote. The recommendation as it stands with Councillor Smith and Councillor Byrne. All those in favour? Thanks. That'll be carried unanimously. And we move on to item 9, which is informal meetings of councillors. And that will be taken as read with the recommendation that we note the summary, or receive, sorry, the summary of informal meetings of councillors. Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Graham, thank you. Councillor Anderson. Nothing. Councillor Graham, nothing to add. Anybody else? No. Thank you. We'll take that one to the vote then. All those in favour of the recommendation? That is carried. Thank you very much. Unanimously, we have presentation of reports by delegates, and I will start with my, on my right, with Councillor Anderson. Nothing. Councillor Byrne?
ARC meeting where we reviewed the finance and performance reports with the results from the external auditor, where we've achieved minimal outstanding audit matters and adjustments identified. So congratulations once again to the team.
Councillor Graham?
Thank you. I've actually got two reports to bring to the council's attention. The first one from the 18th of August, which was the Waste and Recycling Forum, which was held in Benalla. 3 attendees, myself, Michelle Stark, Pat Burke. Items were discussed. The purple glass bin rollout. Wangaratta's rolled out 90% of theirs and only had 13 objections from a 30,000 population. Remember, this was 5.5 weeks ago. Several other states have included wine and spirit bottles in the container deposit scheme. As yet, there's no word from if Victoria is considering that. 34 councillors have joined an advocacy group to advise the government that they do not wish to have an additional glass bin. This idea to the Alpine Shire would cost approximately $450,000 to implement the bins and an additional estimated $72 a year for their collection. That would also then put another truck on the roads, and if we're measuring our carbon footprint, that doesn't go along with it. Benalla is developing a landfill master plan in conjunction with the EPA, and where their aim is to become a regional landfill site. If that goes ahead and when our contract finishes, that's a much closer distance for the trucks to travel if the finances all come up. Some areas are complaining about cockies in the bins because they're very smart. Apparently there is a bin clip available. The cockies haven't worked out yet, but I guess they will in time. The inclusion of councillors on this committee with questions, I was able to actually provide the terms of reference to the group that established the reason why councillors were included. North East Water at Wodonga installing a solar battery, waste to energy, bioenergy, biochar, hydrogen plant. It's a mouthful. The byproduct of hydrogen is oxygen, and that will be fed into the wastewater treatment plant to help combat anaerobic bacteria. We then had a presentation from Recycling Victoria's Anastasia Conto-Georgius. The next meeting is in November. The second one is the Goulburn Murray Climate Alliance from the 11th of September, held online. If I cut through a lot of the waffle, one of the founding members of the Alliance has withdrawn after 16 years of membership. This will definitely have impacts on staffing, projects, budget and policy. This has chiefly been focused on the financial implications of the sudden departure of Greater Shepparton and decisions around their desire to participate in some of the GMCA programs. Some of the projects and reports in the pipeline, an application to the Disaster Resilience Fund to reduce climate risk in the regions. The application has been shortlisted with the expected outcome about this month or next month. Department of Transport and Planning has been involved in a subdivisions advisor to help out the councils. I'm not quite sure how that's going to have an effect on us at the present stage. The Goulburn Murray Solar Savers are up and running, and Wangaratta has now joined in with that program, and they've delivered 40-odd quotes in just a few weeks. That's available to anyone in the Alpine Shire. There's some webinars coming up. One of them, setting up EV fleet transitions. North East Catchment Managers offered to fund the GMCA to help put together a practical forum on carbon offsets. Last month, we had a Greenhouse Alliance conference statewide with just over 400 people attending. And the next meeting will be in Benalla on the 20th of November. And again, at this meeting, the North East Waters battery, solar, waste, energy, biochar, Hydrogen plant was discussed, and we're hoping actually at the next meeting will be held at that site so we can have an inspection. That'll do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Graham. One on this side? No, and neither. Nothing from me either. So we start on general business, and I will go from my left. Councillor Tanzin.
Nothing from me.
Councillor Ronco. Nothing. Councillor Smith.
Okay.
Councillor Graham. Councillor Byrne.
Nothing.
Councillor Anderson. No, I reckon I'm done too. Mr Jeremy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to note some of the documents of importance that we have out for community on public exhibition at the moment. Draft financial plan, draft asset plan are really fundamental documents mapping out for the next 10 years through to 2035 what Council's forecast of its finances and its asset management looks like. They're really, really important documents, and they've taken significant work to build up. So if you get a chance, have a look at those. We've got the Valley Development Road Deviation and Land Exchange, which is out for public exhibition as well as part of a statutory process. And then finally, we've got Amendment C 65 Alpi to the Alpine Planning Scheme. So that's implementing the outcomes of the 2023 Alpine Planning Scheme review recommendations. And we've also got the Neighbourhood Character Strategy out for consultation. And I'd like to reflect on the success of the team. So this is Sarah Buckley through Michael McDonough into the Growth and Future team in building some momentum around our strategic planning. So for many years, I think we recognise now that we underinvested in strategic planning. The previous council committed to increasing the resource into that team. It's taken a little bit of time to gain some momentum in the team, and these things do happen slowly, particularly in the strategic planning world. But what we're seeing now is, I think, the fruits of that investment that was made by council. We're now seeing some significant documents which are really going to set the scene for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years for the Alpine Shire. So really exciting documents. We've said it so many times, the time to comment and provide feedback is now on these planning documents. It's too late once the amendments have gone through. It's no point coming in 10 years' time and saying we don't like what happened 10 years ago. So really, I implore the community to get hold of some of these documents, the Neighbourhood Character Strategy, the planning scheme amendments, and really have a good look at them and see how the council of today is shaping what the future of the Alpine Shire is going to look like.
Thank you very much, Mr Jeremy, and here, yeah, absolutely. Stand up and be heard. So we move on now to item 12, motions for which notice has previously been given, and there are none. 13, reception and reading of petitions, there are none. Documents and signing and sealing, we also have nil there tonight. No confidential reports, and so item 16 is closure of the meeting at 6:27. Thank you.